She's stressing that the European Union should have the power to veto member states' budgets. Angela Merkel was speaking to the German Parliament this morning ahead of today's meeting of EU leaders in Brussels. They all arrived a couple of hours ago and talks are ongoing right now. But I reckon this is the best atmosphere before an EU summit for a while. The dog hasn't barked. The crisis has ebbed away a little bit. There was a figure this morning, one of the key economic indicators in Europe at the moment, which is how much Spain has to pay to borrow money. And that is at a 9-month low. And this is, Spain is the thing that could topple the whole rescue fund over, because if Spain defaulted, it would take an awful lot of money to bail them out. Let's chat to Phillip Souta, who's Director of Business for New Europe. Now, Philip, fair to say that you are a relatively pro-EU group of sort of think tank, is that right?
Yeah, we think we're better off in, and that we should be pushing the EU to reform and complete the single market.
Do you think? Do you agree with my analysis that perhaps the backdrop for this summit is better than many in the past, that almost any other summit this year?
I do think that's right. I think what you said before is spot on. Angela Merkel is effectively in election mode now. We know who she's going to be facing in the German elections next year. She doesn't want to see Greece leave the euro before that, at the very earliest. And although she's talking a very strict disciplinarian type of line, what she really wants is the European banking rules, which are being currently discussed, not to apply to all of the banks of the eurozone. That's what she really wants to get out of this summit.
But she's talking. I remember the sort of off-record briefings earlier this year, where there were senior EU politicians and regulators who were talking about the possibility of Greece defaulting, Greece leaving the euro. That doesn't seem to be happening now. There isn't that background chat anymore, is there? Really?
No, this is the best atmosphere that we've had before a summit in 6 months to a year, and there are very good reasons for that. Mario Draghi of the ECB has set out a really quite powerful mechanism for buying distressed countries.
Well, he basically say he'll do whatever it takes. He used that phrase, didn't he?
Exactly. He's got the biggest unlimited ability to print money apart from the United States Federal Reserve, and people would be very, very unwise to bet against that.
However, let's talk about the problems that haven't gone away at all. Spain's bad debts are rising, aren't they? And the economic fundamentals are still horrendous. High unemployment, bad debts rising in countries, deficits not shrinking, ironically, apart from in Greece, where they are shrinking. But there's still an awful lot of bad news, isn't there?
There's an awful lot of bad news, but again, over the last 6 to 12 months, you've seen the pressure, which arguably actually is ebbing a little bit, and that might be a little bit of a problem, but you have seen the pressure forcing the leaders of peripheral countries to do things, structural reforms to their labour market, to their opening up regulated professions, and in terms of fiscal reforms as well, forcing them to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do 2 years ago because it just wouldn't have been politically viable. So there is movement, and I think over the next couple of years we are going to see improvements in those countries' economies.
Okay, Phillip Souta, thank you very much for joining us. Let's remember that the backdrop to all of this was the general strike in Greece, violent protests outside the Greek parliament. So there is still an awful lot of strife, of course.
Good analysis, Dominic, and he agreed with you, which was a good.
37-year-old woman in Flintshire, and recorded crime has fallen 6% in England and Wales.